The smarter you are, the worse you are at running your own life. Not a little worse, measurably, systematically worse. And the evidence has been sitting in plain sight for decades, hiding behind the assumption that intelligence protects you from the traps that catch everyone else. We have always believed that intelligence and good judgment travel together, that the person who scores highest on the test also makes the clearest choices about their career, their relationships, their own well-being. But what if intelligence and judgment are not just separate? What if they sometimes pull in opposite directions? What if the very tools that make a smart person brilliant at solving other people's problems make them uniquely blind to their own? In 1994, cognitive psychologist Keith Stanovich at the University of Toronto introduced a term that has never fully entered public consciousness: dysrationalia. He defined it precisely: the inability to think and behave rationally despite having adequate intelligence. Not stupidity, not ignorance, something far stranger. A person can score in the 99th percentile on a cognitive test and still make decisions that a reasonably alert teenager would recognize as catastrophically wrong. Stanovich's research drew a sharp line between two types of thinking: algorithmic ability, what IQ tests measure, and reflective ability, the disposition to question your own conclusions, seek out evidence that disagrees with you, resist the pull of what you already believe. High IQ says nothing about the second kind, nothing at all. Here is what that actually looks like. Philip Tetlock, a psychologist at the University of Pennsylvania, spent 20 years collecting predictions from thousands of credentialed experts, economists, political scientists, military analysts, people with advanced degrees, institutional reputations, and decades of experience. He scored every prediction against what actually happened. The result was devastating. The experts performed barely better than random chance. But the specific finding almost no one talks about is this: the more intelligent and confident the expert, the worse their predictions became. Intelligence in this context was not a shield against error. It was a weapon pointed inward. Why? Because a high-functioning mind does not just make mistakes, it defends them brilliantly. Every bad decision comes preloaded with sophisticated justification. Every warning sign gets reinterpreted to fit the existing conclusion. The brain is not trying to find truth. It is trying to confirm what it already believes, and it is very good at it. There is a name for the most dangerous version of this: the bias blind spot. Psychologist Emily Pronin at Princeton discovered something almost painful to read about. When people are educated about cognitive biases, they immediately become better at detecting those biases in other people, and simultaneously more convinced that they themselves are not affected. The smarter the person, the faster and more elegantly this happens. Learning about bias does not cure it. For high IQ individuals, it accelerates it.
Now step back. Consider what this means at scale. You are not dealing with rare edge cases. You are describing the person who has spent their entire life being rewarded for their analytical ability. Every exam, every promotion, every successful argument confirmed the same message: your mind is the tool you can trust. So when that mind generates a conclusion about the relationship you should stay in, the career path you should double down on, the risk you should take with your health, you believe it. Not because it is correct, because it feels the way correct thoughts have always felt. The ancient Stoics had a word for this. They called it the false impression, the moment when perception and reality diverge, and the untrained mind does not notice the gap. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journals, never meant for anyone else to read, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." He was not writing about other people. He was writing to himself, a man who commanded the largest empire on earth and still spent every night wrestling with his own capacity for self-deception. This is not ancient history. Think about the last significant decision you avoided making, not because you lacked information, because gathering more information felt productive. The research continued, the spreadsheets grew more detailed, the consultations multiplied, and meanwhile, the actual choice kept receding into next month, next quarter, next year. This is what Stanovich calls the cognitive miser pattern, the mind conserving its most expensive resource, genuine uncertainty, by substituting sophisticated-seeming activity for actual decision. Here is the point where this becomes personal, not as a concept, but as something happening right now in your actual life. You already know the decision you have been rationalizing. You know the conclusion you keep arriving at that no longer holds up to scrutiny you are willing to apply to anyone else's life but your own. The research does not suggest you are broken. It suggests you're running normal human cognitive hardware, and that hardware was never designed to generate unbiased conclusions about its own operator. What the evidence shows about people who make better decisions is not that they are smarter. They are slower to conclude. They ask the question that intelligent people find most uncomfortable. What would have to be true for me to be wrong about this? Stanovich's research ends not with a cure, but with a question that has no comfortable answer. If intelligence does not generate good judgment, an education about bias makes the bias blind spot worse, and the very tools that make you capable of sophisticated thought are the tools that build the most sophisticated rationalizations, then what exactly do you do with that? There is no technique that solves this entirely. There is only the ongoing, uncomfortable practice of treating your own certainty as a warning sign rather than a destination. Marcus Aurelius never fully conquered his own mind. He just kept fighting it every night in private. The question worth sitting with is not whether you are making bad decisions. You are. Everyone is. The question is, which one are you currently defending with the most intelligence?